we have had a lot of success here, and we've built on the successes of, early days, software artistry, and going back to Baker Hill, and a number of the Indianapolis companies, that have exited. And obviously, Recite, in Bloomington, and what that spawned with SproutBox and that whole movement, all the way up to, Angie's List IPO, and Exact Target's IPO and subsequent acquisition. What do you think that means? What do you think that those exits and those pieces mean for Indianapolis and for Indiana in general? And what do we need to do to build on that momentum? It's kind of like, what do you do after we have the Super Bowl here? Do we go for the next $2.5 billion exit, or do we just keep getting small wins? What say you?
I have some very strong feelings about this, and I have for the last couple of years. When I was with Mike Kelly and Jason Vasquez and Clorin and the others at DeveloperTown, a couple of years ago I was saying, guys, 2014 is going to be the bellwether year for entrepreneurship, and actually it was 2013. Turns out it's probably going to be 2014, the bellwether year for entrepreneurships and startups in Indiana, for many reasons. One, the ecosystem that's building, but several of these major exits and liquidity events that have created dozens, if not hundreds, of millionaires with the temperament, the interest, and the financial capacity to go out and try it themselves. And that is first and foremost what you need in an ecosystem. You have to have that success, and then you have to have those that were successful go out, try it again, and pull others into this wacky world of entrepreneurship, right? And that's really what makes Silicon Valley so special. It didn't just happen in the last 10 or 20 years. If you think that, you're just misinformed. The first place I went to when we moved out there was I went to in fact, JP and I might have actually done it together, the Palo Alto Hewlett-Packard garage, and literally stood there and just looked at it and thought, man, 40 years ago at the time, now 42 years ago, it all started right there. And it took several spin-outs and exits and multi-billions of dollars coming and going to build that ecosystem, and it won't happen overnight. You have a few of these happen, you have a period of entrepreneurial kind of growth, and then it happens again. And we can already see those next special companies that are growing up right now. And I won't embarrass anyone or take my shots at naming the ones that I think are going to win. But man, you can see this building, and there's a lot of excitement and a lot of opportunity.
And I think, John, related to that is when you look at what's happened and where there have been exits, almost all the founders, almost all the key employees are still here. I mean, they're still in Indiana. They've not left. We have cases, John Wechsler, that left and came back. I mean, which is awesome. I mean, I'll always remember that first time I called you when I found out you were coming back. It was so critical. We have successful companies in Indiana that have been started by people that came back from Silicon Valley. Dan Hayes up with Health Call in Maryville, Jeff Reedy with Scale Computing. I mean, we have lots of examples. And what's happening is, what I really believe is happening is you talk to everybody that does come back or that doesn't leave, they're staying for quality of life. And that is just an absolutely huge aspect of this ecosystem in Indiana.
I think so our first fund is now about 5 years old, and we are definitely focused on what I think is that next phase. This has been a topic of conversation with us a lot. We've generated a bunch of small companies, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people companies, and it's time from our standpoint for us to start picking the winners out of those, start doubling down into the companies that we think are really going to be the big ones. And I think a lot of these ecosystems that have popped up, these small little groups, are in that phase where it's time to look at the companies, call the herd, get behind some, take advantage of the fact that there's a ton of new capital available in the state to help fuel the growth of some of our winners and take them to the next level. And that's, instead of it being like, I think the co-working models are essential, but the next phase is to start having companies, at least in Bloomington, that are in, bigger shops. They're going out and getting their own office. They're starting to have 10 employees, 20 employees, and 30 employees so that we can get the cycle going like what happened with Recite. We were the only one. We built this company, we sold it, and we reinvested. We want to take the 20 companies we've created and do that with all 20 of them now. And that's kind of our next phase. So I'm very optimistic about that, given the climate of the rest of the state of Indiana.
Just to kind of go back to what John was saying about quality of life, I think that can't be underestimated. I think that a lot of focus is given to funding and talent, and that's great. We need those things in terms of the ecosystem. But when you think about the other side of that, it's the habitat, right? And yeah, that's the co-working spaces, but it's also the cultural trail. It's the bed and breakfast going into Broad Ripple, finally, right? A place people can actually stay without going either far north or far south. So I think that the tech community needs to, and especially the people with a lot of money, which now we've got a bunch more, or soon to have a bunch more, need to look at that ecosystem and think of the quality of life aspects. If they really want to make a long-term bet, make those investments as much as the investments in the company, and find ways to build up that infrastructure so that this is the habitat for the talent. And I think that was the approach with the speakeasy that we took, is let's just build the space. We're not going to tell them really what to do. And the animals came, they took over, and they run the zoo now. And I think that's the way it works. Yeah.
So I think from my perspective, one of the things that means in terms of the people that we talk to who are starting companies today versus the people we talked to 3 years ago, it's just night and day difference, right? It's not only the people locally who are now just becoming serial entrepreneurs, but it's also the people who look at Indianapolis who wouldn't have looked here before, right? So the number of deals that we see potentially coming out of Chicago, who would have never looked at Indianapolis, 3 years ago, but now legitimately look down here and say, well, hey, we've heard about Indianapolis and some of the things you guys have going there, and some of the, it's really nice news when companies sell for really big, large amounts of money, right? That gets attention. And so, it's not only the capital that is created here and stays here, hopefully, it's also what that attracts to this space. And I think, Verge and everything that you've done over the last couple of years, and there's a ton of other groups, TechPoint, and just that attention and the attention of Startup America and the attention of some of the other things that are going on here creates a gravity that brings in better opportunities, which is ultimately what drives that wheel, right? The better ideas you get, the more people out there pitching, and as those float to the top, that's how you drive that engine. And I think, for us, it's really great to work with these companies and to move that forward. But it all starts, it all starts with those exits coming back here and working here.